Hey, second grade art friends, it's Mrs. Herbay. I want to introduce you to our next little project where we are going to be drawing a teddy bear in a cool patterned sweater. A couple of the things that the art techniques or art vocab words that we're going to be looking at are texture is one of them. And we are going to learn a technique to make our bear look like he has fur. It's called implied texture, which means if we actually touched his face, it wouldn't feel furry, but it would look furry, okay? And so that's a technique that artists use when they're creating artwork to make it look more realistic. So that's one of the things we're going to talk about. And then we're going to also just review pattern and lines and shapes. And then we're going to do that when we create the bear sweater. So for step one today, all we're going to be doing is we're going to be actually drawing the bear, okay? And we're going to then be creating the patterned sweater, all right? So this is sort of a finished example I wanted to show you guys before we get started. But what you're going to need today is you're just going to need this white piece of paper that was in your take-home bag from your teacher. It's just a regular white piece of drawing paper. And then you're also going to need to grab your sketchbook, okay? And because we're going to be practicing some lines and shapes in our sketchbook. So, and then the only other thing you're going to need is a pencil, and if you happen to need an eraser, okay? So go grab those things and we'll get started. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the bear's head. But a lot of times if I would just say to you, draw a circle in the middle of your paper, you would say, all right, but how do I know how big to make it? And how do I know where to put it? So I'm going to show you guys a couple different, I'm going to show you a strategy that I use to kind of help you to figure out where to orient something that you want to draw on your paper, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take our magic pointer finger and we're going to go up to the top of our piece of paper and we're going to kind of figure out where we think the middle of our paper is, okay? If I have my finger over here, is that the middle? No, you're probably saying, no, Mrs. Herbay, it's not. Move it over some. So I'm going to move it over to where I think it's about the middle. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down maybe just about that far, okay? And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to put a little mark right where my finger was, okay? And you're going to do the same thing. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the bottom of our piece of paper, all right? And what we're going to do is we're going to, again, find the middle, where we think is about the middle. And then this time we're going to go up a little bit more than halfway. So probably like right around in here, okay? And there's going to be, if you can see, so there's going to be about this much distance in between this mark and this mark. And same thing, we're going to take out our magic pencil and put a mark right here. Okay? And what that does is that tells us when I start to draw my bear's head, I want the top of the head to be up, to start up here. And I want the bottom of the head to possibly be right around in here, okay? I want the bottom of the bear's head to end right around in here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come over from where we are, maybe about to like right here. And we're going to put a mark. And then same thing, we're going to go across and put a mark, all right? And what that's going to do is that's going to help us to draw our bear's head. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start at the mark on the side, all right? And we're going to curve up and over and then back around. So what we're drawing is we are drawing essentially a curved line that kind of looks like a rainbow. And if you go a little bit past or above the marks that we drew, that is totally okay. These are just rough guidelines to kind of tell us where we want to go. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side where we're going to come around and come down and curve around. Oops, Mrs. Herbay curved. Wait a minute. My curve got a little silly. So we're going to start here. We're going to curve around. We're going to hit this line. And then we're going to curve around and back to that line. Okay? And then we're going to have roughly a circle. And if, let's say, you're looking at it and you're like, you know what, Mrs. Herbay, I need to adjust it a little bit. What I like to do is make your adjustment first, okay? And then erase the line that you don't want, okay? A lot of times what happens is that sometimes we try to erase the line that we don't want, like in a hurry. We're like, get rid of that line. And we erase it, but then we can't see where we need to correct it. So if you leave the line you're not crazy about, and then you make some adjustments, it makes it a little bit easier, okay? And then I think I'm pretty happy with the rest of how this looks, okay? So there is roughly my bear's head, okay? Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to draw the bear's shoulders. So I'm going to move my paper up a little bit so you can see the bottom. Okay, and what we're going to do is we're going to start in the middle and we're going to move over a little bit to about where we're on the side of the bear's head, okay? And what we're going to do is we're going to go out diagonally, but then we're going to curve it and then go straight down to make the bear's shoulders. So same thing, I'm just going to kind of go out and then straight down. Okay, and then same thing, I'm going to go over on the other side. I can literally, just where I started here, I'm just going to go over till I reach the edge. And then same thing, I'm just going to kind of go diagonally down and then down like that. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're going to draw 2 vertical lines to make the bear's arms. So you might say, well, I'm not sure how much space to leave for the bear's arms. I would say Mrs. Herbay has 3 fingers here, 3 fingers of a width. That's probably a little too, well, it's probably okay. It's probably like 2.5 for me, but probably for you guys, 3 fingers worth. Okay, and I'm just going to put a little mark there. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to put a little mark here. And again, that's just kind of giving me an idea of the spaces to make sure that they're about equal, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to start at the bottom here, and we're going to go up, 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 up to about here, and then we're going to make a Y. And what we're doing is we're making the bear's little armpits right there. And then we're going to do the same thing here where we're going to go vertically straight up, 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 and then we're going to make our Y. All right. And there we have the bear's head, and then we have the bear's body. Okay. Now let's concentrate on adding the rest of the details to the bear's face. So bears have a snout, but when we look at a snout in a 2D drawing, it's usually the shape of the letter U. So what we're going to do is I want us to put a few guidelines again. So we're going to take our magic pointer finger and we're going to find the middle of the bear's chin, which is kind of right about here. And I'm just going to go up just about a fingernail's worth, okay? And I'm going to put a little mark there. And that tells me that that's where I want the bottom of my U to go. And then for the top of the U, what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of put my magic finger in the middle up at the top, and I'm going to come down about this far. So I'm going to put a mark kind of right about there. Okay, so that tells me how high I want to start my U. And what you can do is you can kind of draw a little bit of a light line like that across. Okay, So that what we're going to do is we're going to start at the edge here, and we're going to curve down and around, and then around and back up. And then this light line that we drew that kind of showed us how wide we wanted that snout to be, we're going to erase it. All right? Then what we're going to do is we're going to come up right about in the middle of this letter U. We are going to draw a square. But the square, I want us to make sure that instead of having pointy corners, we want the square to have rounded corners. Kind of like that. So we're drawing the bear's nose, but to make it look even more fancy, if you guys draw like a little bit of a crescent moon right there, we're going to leave that white. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to shade in the rest of the bear's nose. Okay? And then we're also going to give our bear just a mouth. So what we're going to do is we're going to put our pencil right in the middle of this nose. We're going to draw a vertical line down about that far. And then we're going to give him a little smile. And if you want to, you can kind of put a little, like his mouth is open if you would like to. Okay? And then we are going to give the bear eyes. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the top of this U and come down just a little bit. And we're going to just move over just a hair, and we're going to draw a nice big circle. And what I like to do to make the eye, to put a little twinkle in the bear's eyes, I'm going to put a little circle up in this right hand corner of the circle that I drew for the eye. And then we can just take our pencil and lightly color in the eye. Okay? Then what you can do is you can kind of take your pencil where this eye is, kind of go across, and then right in the same kind of same idea, we're going to draw another circle. And again, up in this right hand corner, I'm going to draw a little circle. And then we're just going to fill in this eye. Okay? Then the last detail that our bear is missing is ears. Ears for the bear's head go on the side of the bear's head. So an easy way to locate that is to start kind of where the top of this U is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go diagonally across like this. And then I'm going to make a curve. And we've been making these curves all day long. So I'm going to make a curve like that. And then I'm just going to make another curve inside of it. So there's ear number 1. Then I'm going to go over to the other U, or the other U, the top of the other top of the U, and I'm going to go, same thing, I'm going to go diagonally, and then I'm going to curve up and around, and then I'm going to curve up and around and there. Okay, and Mrs. Herbay's looking to see, this one I might have gone up too far, and so I corrected that line that I didn't like, and then I'm erasing it. But I like to correct the line that I don't like first and then erase the other line. Okay, so now we have a bear. All right, and so I'm going to give you guys a minute if you need to finish up your bear's details, or if you need to finish up drawing the bear's arms or his shoulders. Okay. And then what we're going to do is when we start back up, grab your sketchbook and a pencil, and we're going to talk a little bit about some lines and patterns. So a lot of times when we think about patterns and decorating, if I were to say to you, we're going to decorate, we're going to make some patterns for a bear sweater, you might say, well, I don't really have any ideas. I'm not sure how to do that, right? So what we're going to do is in our sketchbooks, and I'm going to use this little piece of paper, and I'll tell you why. Because when we go to start talking about patterns, this little piece of paper will be able to fit next to the bear drawing, and I'm going to leave it here in case you need to also reference it, okay? But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to just brainstorm some basic lines that we know, all right? And the first line that I'm going to draw is a horizontal straight line, okay? And that's our basic of basic lines, right? And then I'm going to draw some vertical straight lines. It's another kind of line that we know. And then I'm going to also draw some straight diagonal lines. Okay? Then if we talk about, if we put diagonal lines together, we can get a zigzag. If we put the diagonal lines together in a little bit of a different way, we can get a tighter zigzag. If we combine horizontal and vertical lines, we get a line that you guys remember, I think we call this line castle or teeth. So that's another fun line. Now, in addition to straight lines, there are curved lines, okay? And if we combine simple curves, we can get lines that look like sort of like this wave, or we can turn it upside down and it kind of looks like hills. We can also do a wavy line that's a little bit more gentle, just kind of gentle like that, but then we can also do a wavy line where we get a lot more hills and valleys to it, okay? Then we want to think about just some basic shapes that we know, nothing fancy. So we obviously know circles, and they can come in different sizes. And we know squares. Another fun thing that you can do is when you're making patterns is you can draw shapes within shapes. So for example, if I draw a square within this square, and then I add a diagonal line there and a diagonal line there, I have a pretty fancy little design element, right? Some other basic shapes that we can draw are triangles. And again, triangles can have lots of different looks to them. And we can draw rectangles. We can draw ovals, hearts. So heart is a curve up and around, curve up and back down. And we can do stars even. So if we make a mountain like that, so it's like we're making part of a zigzag, and then we're going to go diagonal to the left, horizontal to the right, and back down where we started from. Okay? So these are the basic lines and shapes that we're going to use to make patterns. So go ahead and finish up your line practice, and then we'll talk about making our bear sweater. All right, guys. Now I'm going to teach you another little fun trick, and it's going to be how to make the bear sweater look a little bit more 3D, okay? And if I were to say to you to divide up your paper into areas, you probably, if you were just going to draw it, you probably would just draw, okay, Mrs. Herbay, and you would just draw some straight horizontal lines. But what I'm going to show you is when you do that, it makes your bear look kind of flat. So instead, when we draw some lines to divide up our sweater, we're going to keep those lines having a slight curve, just like the chin of our bear, and it's going to make the sweater look like it's going to make the sweater and the bit look like it actually has more of a 3D bear wearing it, okay? So what we're going to do is I just want you to watch me, and then you can decide where you want to put your sweater lines, okay? But the first one that we're going to do together is we're going to draw the line, this curved line up here, kind of near the top of the bear's chin, and that's kind of going to form the top of the bear's sweater. So we're just going to draw kind of like a slight smile. It's sort of a line that's parallel to the chin line. It's the same space going around. And then what we're going to do is we're going to draw some diagonal lines that are going to come around and become vertical lines. And they're going to come diagonal again. So that's sort of like the neck of the bear sweater, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to divide the sweater up into some different sections. And that's where you can decide. Maybe you want to draw a line that's closer to that curved line to create an area. Maybe you want to move down a little bit further and draw that curved line. It's totally up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw one that's maybe right around in here. But I'm going to make sure that it is curved. So it kind of comes down, goes across, and then goes back up. All right? And then maybe I'm going to draw one that's close to that one. Just for a little bit of variety. So again, it's the same space, it's the same curve. Then maybe I'm going to skip down a little bit more of a ways. And I'm going to curve. This one I didn't get as much of a curve as I would like. So I got a curve going right there, okay? And then we're going to do the same thing, working our way down. I'm going to do another curve and maybe a closer curve. And then last but not least, my final curve. Now, and Mrs. Herbay's just looking. This line doesn't look as curved as I would like it, so I'm just gonna start up here a little bit, curve down and around, and then curve back up. All right, so once you have your sweater divided into parts, then we'll start talking about pattern, okay? So take a few minutes, decide where you want to put your curved lines, and then we'll continue. All right, guys, so now we're ready to start talking about patterns. And patterns can be repeating or not repeating, and they're when you use either a line or a shape or lines and shapes together to create a design, okay? And so what we're going to do is, to start off with, you're going to maybe look at your repertoire of lines and shapes that we've made. And to get started, you might just say, well, I don't know, right? And so maybe to start off with, just pick up a line that you like. So maybe I'm going to start off with a diagonal line. You don't have to start off with a diagonal line. I'm just kind of going to show you the thought process that I'm going through as I'm starting to make my patterns. So I'm going to start my diagonal line, or my zigzag line, excuse me. This is Herbay said diagonal. It's made up of diagonal lines, but it's called a zigzag, okay? And there's my zigzag line. All right, and let's say you say, okay, that looks great. Perfectly fine. You could just leave it as a zigzag. Or you might want to say, well, I want to jazz it up a little bit. Well, then maybe I'm going to just add some triangles inside the shapes that were created by those diagonal lines. So that just kind of shows you how you can take a simple line and then make it look a little jazzier, okay? Now I'm going to come down to this next section, and maybe I say to myself, you know what, I don't want to use a line. I maybe want to try a shape, okay? And you can do shapes that are kind of evenly spaced, or you could do random shapes. So for example, maybe I want to do different size circles. So I'm just kind of filling up this space. With different shapes. Different size circle shapes. Okay. If I said, well, it looks nice, but I want to jazz it up, one of the things I could do is I could do shape within a shape. Or maybe I want to add a line to the shape. So if I take this curve line, or sort of the wavy line, depending on which way, and I start doing a line around the circle, I get a flower. Okay? So that's another option. And maybe then I turn some of these circles into flowers. Maybe you're like, oh, Mrs. Herbay, this is really hard for me. Maybe you just want to make some vertical lines. Okay? And another cool thing you can do is inside vertical lines you could put shapes, or you could even do like an X marks the spot. And that's kind of another fun way to make patterns. You could, maybe for my next one, I'm just gonna do this kind of fun ribbony. Okay, so go ahead and figure out, maybe take a minute, think about what you want to do, and use these lines and shapes kind of as your menu that will help to inspire you to make your different patterns inside of the different parts of your bear sweater. All right, guys. Once you get all the patterns drawn on your bear sweater, you are going to stop for today because your hand probably has gotten quite a workout. So I can't wait to see what you guys started this week when I talk to you on, let's see, Thursday. And I hope you have a great week, and I'll look forward to seeing you soon.